The Tennessee Titans' biggest need this offseason is at edge rusher, but cornerback is a close second. I'll rank the Titans' biggest needs on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. On today's show, I am going to be ranking the Tennessee Titans' biggest offseason needs. Edge and cornerback are very close at the top, but all the way at the bottom is offensive tackle. Before I dive into all of it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. Roster moves right around the corner. Free agency less than a month away. The draft right after that. If you want to stay as up to date, as informed, and as entertained as a Tennessee Titans fan could possibly be, make sure that you stay locked in with the number one Tennessee Titans podcast in the world, Locked On Titans. But with that being said, again, the number one need for the Tennessee Titans this offseason is edge rusher. Now, I admit, some of this comes down to my personal philosophy with football. If you guys have been listening to the show for any amount of time, literally since the very first season that I ever did the show back in 2019, I have been telling you that my football philosophy is the pass rush is what is most important on defense. Now, there are some people out there who believe that a good back end is very, very important, and you could be that kind of person. You could want your cornerbacks, your safeties, all of that. But me, I will always say that a dominant front four, a dominant pass rush makes everybody else better and allows you to maybe put less resources into everything else. So I'm always going to favor the boys up front, and that's why edge rusher is the number one need for me. Now, I admit cornerback is a close second, but when you look at edge, I think the Tennessee Titans need two starters this offseason. And listen, Femi Oladejo is a guy that I have faith in. I have faith in Femi. You're going to hear me say that later this offseason for sure. But in Robert Saleh's defense, I think there's a pretty good chance that Femi Oladejo is the Sam linebacker, which is kind of a hybrid edge linebacker type player, which fits perfectly because what did Femi Oladejo do in college? He was an off-ball linebacker his first couple of years. Halfway through his last season at UCLA, he transitioned to be a full-time edge rusher. He has the skill set to be a big physical edge on the line of scrimmage on early downs in the Titans' base 4-3 defense, but also has the ability to play as a hand-in-the-dirt edge rusher in a four-man front. He gives you the best of both worlds. But when you're looking at your base starting defense, a 4-3 alignment, Femi probably is more of your Sam linebacker than one of those edges, one of those defensive ends. So, with that in mind, all the Titans really have at edge is Femi, who is more of a Sam linebacker, in my opinion, and then Jalen Harrell. And listen, Harrell really blew up last year for who he is and his situation. Like, he's a 7th-round rookie from 2 years ago or a 7th-round second-year player. But he had some really good moments and proved that he can be good depth for this team, but depth, not a starter. So I'm looking at edge, and I'm saying, based on what we heard from Gus Bradley in the press conference earlier this week, the Titans would want a 3-down edge rusher who has a little bit of speed to him, who can get after the quarterback on one side. Then you need the more physical edge rusher who is out on the edge on first and second downs against the run, and then can kick inside and pass rush a little bit from the inside. So what does that set up? Well, if you have the every down speed rusher on one side, And then you have the physical edge setter on the other side playing more of a 5 technique on the inside shoulder or head up on the tackle, outside shoulder of the tackle. And then Femi next to them as the Sam linebacker. And then when you go into passing situations, you keep your speed rusher on the outside. You have Jeffrey Simmons on the inside. You have your power edge rusher who slides into the inside on the inside with Jeff, and then Femi as your other edge rusher on the outside, and that is your 4-man group in passing situations. That's what you'll be looking for. So I think that the Tennessee Titans need to find that outside speed guy, which was like a Bryce Huff, a Will McDonald, in different iterations of Robert Saleh's defense. David Bailey could fit that description. Arvell Reese, I think, could fit that description. Then, with your power edge, think about a guy like a Trey Hendrickson. Think about a guy like Ruben Bain in the draft. I think guys like Zion Young makes a lot of sense if you go later in the draft. Derek Moore, maybe, from Michigan, who's more of a power bull rushing type guy. Maybe those guys could fit that kind of bill. But the point is, for me, it's a combination of the Titans need 2 starters at this spot, and it's the most important position on the defense. So you combine those two things together, an edge rusher is definitely the biggest need for the Tennessee Titans. But I will tell you this, I almost considered putting cornerback there because the Tennessee Titans need 4 cornerbacks to add to this defense if we're being realistic. Now, from a biggest need standpoint, I'm looking at they need starters. Like, who are the starters going to be? That's always going to be the overriding deciding factor for me. But the Titans also need 2 starters at cornerback. And you could argue, if you were in my comments right now or you're hitting me up on social media and saying, Tyler, the Titans need 3 starting cornerbacks. That's the biggest need. I'm not going to argue with you. No bicker here from me. Like, that's a valid point. Now, my philosophy and how much I value the edge rusher position had me have it at number 1, but this is 1A and 1B more than it's 1 and 2, because you could argue the Titans need 3 starting cornerbacks depending on how you feel about Marcus Harris. Now, I think that the Tennessee Titans day 3 cornerback, who was a rookie last year, Marcus Harris, I think that he can be the starting nickel. Now, here's one thing that came into my calculus. The Titans are going to play a lot of big nickel. They're going to play a lot of 4-2-5, which is where you're going to have 3 safeties on the field. And I think that Kevin Winston is going to be that early down nickel. And remember, Mike Vrabel and Shane Bowen did this in 2020, 2021, where they had Elijah Molden and Buster Skrine. Elijah Molden would play early down nickelback, because he's more physical, better blitzer, better tackler against the run. And then they'd bring Buster Skrine in to play on passing downs because he was a quicker, faster, more coverage adept cornerback. I think you should think about cornerback, the slot cornerback position, in that way this year. I think that Kevin Winston, who played some big nickel slot cornerback for Denard Wilson, and a lot of you guys were like, why is he playing it? It makes perfect sense. He's a great blitzer. He's physical against the run. He can be a pseudo linebacker. And the Seattle Seahawks just won the Super Bowl using a guy like Nick Amanwari in that way. And a lot of you guys like Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. He's going to be a guy who plays that big nickel position. Jalen Petrie for the Houston Texans, one of the best in the NFL, is a safety, but plays the big nickel for Houston. I think Kevin Winston is going to be that early down slot cornerback in the Titans' big nickel packages. And then Marcus Harris, who is a 4-3 speed, sticky coverage type guy, he's going to be their passing down slot cornerback. So the Titans need to add a depth slot cornerback to play behind Marcus Harris, but I don't think that they need a starting slot corner when you consider that. Now, what they do need, without a doubt, no debate, is 2 outside corners because they don't have anybody. They have Micah Robinson, who got pulled off the scrap heap. That's like a cornerback 6 or 7 practice squad level guy. They could bring back Darrell Baker Jr. I think they should do that. Darrell Baker Jr. is good depth in the NFL. Is he a starting level player? Is he a superstar? No, but not everyone can be a superstar on a 53-man roster. That's not how it works. You need depth players. All you guys want to say, oh, that player's mid, that player's mediocre. Well, let me tell you, 45 out of the 53 players on a roster are probably mid to mediocre. The term jag, just another guy, is prevalent in the NFL because I would say that 80% of NFL players are pretty much the same. The 20% at the top are the big-time difference makers, the blue chippers, the Jeffrey Simmons, the Cam Wards of the world, the Peter Skoronskis of the world, okay? So when you say Darrell Baker Jr. is mediocre or mid or whatever, honestly, he might be a little less than mid. But you need depth players in the NFL, and coaching can make them better. But the point is, Darrell Baker Jr. is not a starter on the outside, whether they bring him back or not. So the Tennessee Titans need two true starters. And quite honestly, I don't think that you can count on a rookie being one of those guys. You need to go out and get two outside cornerbacks who are starters in the NFL, and then you draft an outside cornerback in the first 3 rounds, and hopefully that guy can become a start right away, but it doesn't have to be a situation where you force him into that role. That's why I'm looking at guys like a Dante Moore out of Florida, a Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina, some other options in the second round who are big physical outside cornerbacks who have the length and have the ability to play outside, playing in that cover 3 zone for Robert Saleh, playing in cover 4 outside quarters. Like, that's what the Titans need. So I would go out, I would get Tariq Woolen or Alontae Taylor, one of those two. I would go out and get a value veteran who could be a starter at outside corner, like an Akello Witherspoon, a Jalen Watson, something like that. And then I would also draft a guy. So there's no doubt about it for me that edge and cornerback are far and away the biggest needs that the Titans have, because they need multiple starters at those spots, and they don't have anybody there right now. But that leaves wide receiver, which I do think is the next greatest need for the Tennessee Titans. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you a chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. And now, not only can your pick cash, but you could also go to the NBA Finals. Coming out of the break, this is the best part of the NBA season. So make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, looking at the Tennessee Titans' biggest needs this offseason. We talked about edge rusher and cornerback, which I think are far and away the biggest needs that the Tennessee Titans have, but we know what comes next, and that's wide receiver. And honestly, there are a bunch of spots on the offensive side of the ball that I think are the next biggest needs. Again, let me know your rankings of the needs down below in the comment section. Hit me up on social media in the Locked On Titans Everyday or group chat. Let me know what your rankings would be. But I have edge and cornerback at the top, and then, yes, wide receiver. And the reason that I have wide receiver as the third biggest need for the Titans is because they do have a little bit of talent there. Whereas cornerback and edge rusher, there's just nothing there right now. You look at wide receiver, the Titans could keep Calvin Ridley around, who I think is a solid number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. They have the 2 young guys in Alec Iomanor and Chim Dike, and Chim Dike in particular really blossomed last year. I think he could be a solid wide receiver too in the NFL eventually. They can bring back Bryce Oliver. They got some depth in Xavier Restrepo. Now look, I am going to sit here and tell you the Tennessee Titans need 2 wide receivers this offseason. They need to add at least 2 wide receivers. Whether both of those come in free agency, both of those come in the draft, one in free agency, one in the draft. Heck, I'll be honest with you. If they got 2 in free agency and 1 in the draft, I would still be with it. But at minimum, they need to add 2. If you add Wan'Dale Robinson, and then you add Chris Brazzell, for example, let's say that. You sign Wan'Dale Robinson in free agency, you draft Chris Brazzell with pick number 35, or Chris Bell, or you get a Ted Hurst in the 3rd round, or maybe they get Michael Pittman Jr. in free agency, and then they get a Zachariah Branch or an Omar Cooper, something like that. Any combination of that works fine for me. I mean, all of the combinations that I just said to you, I'm licking my chops. There are so many different ways to do this, but the reality is the Titans already have a little bit of talent at wide receiver, whereas they're barren in other spots. So I put wide receiver at number 3. I know a lot of you guys will probably disagree with that, and that's perfectly fine, but considering you have Ridley, you have Io, you have DK, I can't put wide receiver over edge where you have Femi and Jalen Harrell, or cornerback where you have Marcus Harris and Micah Robinson. To me, you're talking about needs. Those 2 outweigh that. Now, what I would go to next after wide receiver is interior offensive line, and particularly right guard. The Titans don't have a starter there. Again, the top needs that we're talking about, you are missing starters. You need 2 starters at edge. You need 2 starters at cornerback. You need at least 1 starter at wide receiver. If you had, a Chris Brazzell or, Michael Pittman Jr., whatever the names that we just discussed, Mike Evans, I don't think that makes sense. But just to give you an example, if you add one of those guys in the offseason, and then you move Calvin Ridley to the number 2 and Chim Dike to the number 3, that's not terrible. You can live with that. You need 1 true bona fide starter at wide receiver. Now, does that make the Titans wide receiver core great? No, it doesn't. But that's what you need, okay? You go to interior offensive line, and you have to have a starting right guard. Look, I'm high on Jackson Slater. I'll be honest with you. When the Tennessee Titans used my voice in their rookie video last year of me saying the Tennessee Titans select Jackson Slater, I like Jackson Slater coming into the draft. I love Jackson Slater now. We are intimately linked forever. That was one of the coolest moments. I'm getting off the plane from vacation, and the Titans are using my sound bites in their videos. That a dream come true for a kid who grew up at 9, 8 years old being a Tennessee Titans fan. I can never imagine if you told me at 9 or 10 that the Titans would use my content in a video. I mean, over the moon. And I still am about it. But the point is, even saying that, Jackson Slater is not ready to be a full-time starter for the Titans. They cannot go into the season with the expectation that Jackson Slater is going to be the starter. They can't do that. They need to go get somebody to compete with him. And quite honestly, it needs to be a veteran free agent. It can't be another rookie. And the Titans can't take a rookie guard high enough with all their other needs to that be the case. Slater and a rookie guard battling it out for right guard. They can't do that, okay? They simply can't. So they need to go get a veteran free agent. Wyatt Teller is a guy who just announced that he won't be going back to the Cleveland Browns. Now, Teller didn't have a great season last year. He's been banged up as well. He's on the other side of 30. Is that the route they want to go? I would have a guy like Dylan Parham higher. I don't think that Jermaine Illuminor would come play guard for the Titans, but he does love Carmen Brasillo. Maybe they could talk him into it. Again, I don't think so. Elijah Vera Tucker, another guy, very, very talented player, excellent player, but always banged up. But with the Jets, drafted by the Jets when Robert Saleh was there, there's connection there. Either way, whether it's Parham, whether it's Illuminor, whether it's AVT, whether it's Teller, whatever route you want to go, the Titans need a veteran right guard, and you need to solidify your offensive line. So after the three big needs at edge, cornerback, and wide receiver, I go to right guard. That's the next one for me. Now, after that is where we drop down a tier, in my opinion. The rest of the needs that we're talking about are more depth related because we don't know how things are going to play out. Like the next one that I have is running back. After the big four, I have running back as the next biggest need for the Titans, and that is contingent upon Tony Pollard being cut. I think that Tony Pollard will be cut. Now, if Tony Pollard isn't cut, and I'm wrong, which I think that Tony Pollard should be cut so the Titans can go get a better running back in free agency or in the draft. But if I'm wrong about that, which I may be wrong about that, I can't perfectly predict everything the Tennessee Titans are going to do. Some of you guys treat me like that. You're like, oh, Tyler said they were going to cut Tony Pollard and they didn't. What a bozo. Like, I can't predict every game and every signing and every draft pick and every move perfectly right. Like, come on now. Who can do that? What a ridiculous standard to hold people to. But the point is, if I am wrong and the Titans don't cut Tony Pollard, running back would obviously go down the list. I would not have running back this high if they don't cut Tony Pollard. But I think that Tony Pollard will be cut, and when Tony Pollard is cut, that means that you need two running backs, in my opinion. You need to go out and get a veteran running back in free agency that runs hard and runs with power so that you know that you have that player and Tajay Spears, and then you need to go out in day 3 of the draft and draft a running back as well. The Titans need to make sure they have a more well-rounded committee. You can't have Khalil Mullings or Julius Chestnut as RB3 going into the year. Cannot do it. So the fact that, in my mind, Tony Pollard is cut and the Titans need two running backs, one of them being the power starter, that makes running back the next need for me. Now, after that, I go to tight end. Tight end is where I would go next because you have your tight end one in Gunnar Helm. Great. Versatile, can catch the ball, run routes, got way better as a blocker at the end of the season. Really was doing a great job at the end of the year moving some bodies. Think back to the big pass to Chim Dike against the New England Patriots. Who set the foundational block there to allow that play to happen? It was Gunnar Helm one-on-one with a defensive end. So I have all the faith in the world in Gunnar Helm. You guys know that I have been pushing for Gunnar Helm since before the draft last year. If Gunnar Helm has one fan on earth, it means that I'm still alive. That's all that I know. But they desperately need a tight end too. A real tight end too. An all-around versatile tight end too. Not Chigakonkwo, who couldn't block a traffic cone. A real tight end too. And I think you got to do that in free agency. Gunnar Helm is already going into his second year in the NFL. He's a young player. The Titans need a veteran tight end to go along with him to be their big-time tight end pairing. And then you have David Martin Robinson, who quite honestly does some things that Chigakonkwo does well, and he can be your third tight end who you can use in special situations. Line David Martin Robinson up as a fullback in the backfield. Fake the ball to the running back and have DMR go out into the flat. Those sorts of things. Let him be the guy who you take on the move. Tight end would be the next one after me. So right now, I have edge and cornerback, wide receiver, right guard, running back, and tight end. And you may be wondering, Tyler, where is the defense? Well, it's time to talk about the depth positions because that's where I'm going next. And there's a special teams position that I think is way more of a need than people realize. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. We're looking at every aspect of the draft to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which just might be sleepers. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and only one is going to take the top spot. 5 Hour Energy has a wide variety of flavors. There's something for everyone. Shots that give you a boost with zero sugar. They have so many upcoming flavor innovations planned, but my number one draft pick in the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft is grape. Concord grape flavor. It's similar to like grape juice. It's a soft, well-rounded sweetness, smooth. It's almost syrup-like fruit profile. Consistent, straightforward taste, that classic purple candy style finish. And if you want a little bit of a sleeper, for me, I go with the peach mango. You got the mango that adds tropical depth and sweetness. It's sweet, it's aromatic, it's balanced tropical blend. Absolutely fantastic. I know that you're going to love it. There is truly a flavor for everyone. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We're talking about the biggest needs for the Tennessee Titans. I have edge and cornerback at the top, then wide receiver and right guard, then running back and tight end. Now we got to get more into the defensive spots, and there's a special teams one that I want to get into as well. Before we do, though, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. As a reminder, join the Locked On Titans Everydayer Club. It's only $5 a month. The show is free all year round. I'm doing bonus episodes every single day, short content, an easy way to go above and beyond to support the channel and support me as your host is to join the Locked On Titans Everydayer Club. But look, I'm not just going to ask for $5 a month from you. You get bonus features as well. You're going to get an ad-free version of the show in your podcast feed every day. You're going to get added to a Locked On Titans group chat with a bunch of other everydayers where we're chopping it up. They're sending in mock drafts, mock-ups of new uniforms. So much fun to be in the group chat, and you get access to a Locked On Titans merch store. But with that being said, again, getting to the rest of the needs after edge, cornerback, wide receiver, interior offensive line, running back, and tight end, I go to safety. The Tennessee Titans need one safety upgrade. They have Kevin Winston, they have Amani Hooker, but again, Robert Saleh runs a ton of big nickel, which is 3 different safeties. All right, and if Kevin Winston is playing in the slot in that scenario, Amani Hooker is more of a box safety at this point in his career with his lack of speed. The Titans need a safety that can play in the back end, does have speed, does have range, does have coverage ability. I think in free agency, there are a ton of different options. I like a guy like Nick Cross. Jason Pinnock has been a depth player in Robert Saleh defenses at multiple stops. The Titans could go into the draft and look at a guy like Genesis Smith or a guy like Dylan, I don't even know how to say it, Thieneman out of Oregon, who's a very good player, although he'll probably get drafted in the second round, maybe even the late first round, so he may not be as much of an option. But the point is, I think the Tennessee Titans do absolutely need one other safety. And like how we consider 3 cornerbacks as starters, because you need 2 outside guys and a slot cornerback, like wide receiver. It's not just 2 starters anymore. You need 3 starting level wide receivers nowadays. I think in Robert Saleh's defense, you need 3 starting safeties, just like Denard Wilson focused on having 3 starting level safeties. So Winston, Hooker, and they need another guy. It could be free agency. It could be the draft. It could be both, quite honestly. But safety would be my next one there. Then I go to linebacker. You have Cedric Gray, who is your star at linebacker, and I think he's going to go to a whole nother level in coverage with Robert Saleh. Then you have Cody Barton, who could be your starter at Mike linebacker. James Williams is a guy who I think could take a step forward and maybe take that spot away from Cody Barton. But the Titans probably need one more linebacker. Now, here's what I would say. You could go big game hunting and go get Devin Lloyd from Jacksonville. I'm cool with it. If they want to go big and go get Devin Lloyd and pair him with Cedric Gray and say, we have our 2 linebackers for the next 3 years, I'm in. I'm with it. But if they don't do that, then I think that they need to go out and get a linebacker on day 3 in the draft. This is actually a pretty good linebacker class. It's not terrible. There's a little bit of depth and something for everybody in there. A Jeremiah Trotter, a Jake Galladay. There's so many guys that I can't possibly name them all right now off the top of my head, but there are a lot of different options. Taurine York, who is a little undersized, but I like Taurine. He's a smart player. Reminds me of Jayon Brown. But regardless, I wouldn't have linebacker in the top 7 needs. They do need to add one more linebacker, but I think you could get away with Cody Barton and Cedric Gray and James Williams as your top 3 linebackers one more year before you really attack linebacker next year. So that's why it's a little lower on my list. But next, I would have punter. Johnny Hekker was trash last year. Let's just call it what it is. Bones Fossil was great as the Titans special teams coordinator, but if we're being honest, one of the big mistakes that they made was signing Johnny Hekker. He was not good last year. So punter, a starting punter, actually is a bigger need than Titans fans think. And what I would say is, with all of the cap space that they have, go get Tommy Townsend from the Houston Texans. Maybe the best punter in the entire NFL. He's certainly up there. Go pay $4 or $5 million a year for a punter. Why not? You got 100, and after moves are made, you might have 130, $140 million in cap space. Go give a big-time deal to a punter to make sure that you have one of the best punters in the entire NFL. I'm with it. I am with it. With the defense being at the level I think it's going to be for the Titans this year, if you can consistently pin people back deep and then let the defense attack, that's a good plan. So punter is next on my list of needs. But now we drop down another tier where I really don't think it's a big need at all for the Titans. My bottom 3 needs: quarterback. The Titans need a backup because I think Will Levis is going to be traded. But again, like with Tony Pollard, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Titans don't trade Will Levis. If you have Cam Ward and Will Levis, you don't really need another quarterback. You're not going to keep 3. Now, I would prefer a veteran quarterback with Cam Ward. I think that's the right thing. And I might ask Mike Borgonzi about that at the Combine next week when I ask him some questions. But regardless, it's going to be easy to find a veteran in free agency to pair with Cam if they don't think they're going to keep Levis around. If they do keep Levis, then you're fine at quarterback. You don't really need quarterback. Then I would have offensive tackle. I know that this is going to make some of you guys mad, but look at Dan Moore's contract. He's not going anywhere. I don't think Dan Moore's going anywhere next year either. I think next year, 1 year from right now, we need to be talking about, hey, the Titans might take an offensive tackle in the first round to replace Dan Moore. But it ain't going to be this year. And I think the Titans could draft an offensive tackle in, the mid-rounds, 3, 4, 5, 6, to kind of develop behind Dan Moore. But quite honestly, you have Dan Moore, you have J.C. Latham. They should bring back Ali Udoh. You have Brendan Crenshaw-Dixon as a development offensive tackle still on the roster. Offensive tackle is just simply not a need for this team right now. And they don't need to go out and spend on offensive tackle. They don't need to use a high-end draft pick on offensive tackle. That is a next year problem. You need to give Dan Moore and J.C. Latham one more year to get this thing right. And if Moore is a disaster, you cut him next offseason and you look to move on. Or you keep him for 1 year and you draft a guy high to compete with him. If Latham is an absolute bomb at right tackle this year for some reason, move him inside to guard in his final year. But you can't do it now. You can't do it now. So offensive tackle simply is not that big of a need. And if the Titans bring back Ali Udoh, you have your top 3 offensive tackles. You have your young development tackle in BCD. There's just no reason to go out and spend real resources on offensive tackle at that point. And then the last position, the least biggest need, the smallest need, I don't know if that works, quite frankly, the least biggest need for the Titans is interior defensive line. You have Big Jeff, you have Tavondre Sweat, bring back Sebastian Joseph Day, Blake Lynch, you have Cam Horsley as a nose tackle who can be a development guy. Look, I still want to see John Franklin Myers signed as an interior defensive lineman who could play a little bit on the outside as well, but I can't say that it's a big need for the Titans. So interior defensive line is the lowest need on the list for me. But again, let me know your rankings down below. That's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.